Fuzzy, we got to get into Forza Horizon 6. This is a game that is expected to show up at this event. Now, is this confirmed? It is not. This is a rumor that has been floating around for quite a while. I don't, and of course, I'm going to write to Fuzzy on this because he is the master when it comes to anything racing, and more specifically Forza. They've been working on this game for a minute.
Yeah.
And again, their team is pretty beefy where they can do, obviously Fable, which they got some help, in doing. But I would imagine that Playground Games is ready to show. And again, this is just my personal speculation. I think if it is going to be shown, coming off of, Forza Horizon 5, breaking all of these records with their numbers, they have over 40 million players. They got 2 additional million players added to the list thanks to PlayStation. It was number 1. It was actually held quite a few spots on the top 10 most paid for games on PlayStation. We're going to get into the second half of this conversation about PlayStation actually using Forza Horizon 5 to show off the PS5 Pro, which I've never seen anything quite like it. But again, let's keep this laser focused and let's talk Forza Horizon 6. It has been a while since the original. The original launched in 2021. It has had numerous updates and support. Fuzzy Belvedere. It's had a bunch of DLC in different locations where you can drive. It had the Hot Wheels return in a big way, which is one of my. Again, I really enjoyed it. You're going to see it in this video. I did not like it as much as the original for some reason. I don't know why, but do you expect Forza Horizon 6 to show up at this event? And the big question is, why?
It's been a tough one because originally my train of thought was Fable this year, Forza Horizon 6 next year. 2026 Forza Horizon 6. It works, but with Fable getting postponed to 2026, my gut is that Playground Games, that since they kind of split the teams off between the 2 titles, and I think they may even have a smaller team working on a third project. Hopefully. We'll hear more about that here soon. But as far as like when it came to Forza Horizon 6, I would say then if Fable's postponed, then that would be the time to show it. And maybe it even releases this fall. But the only thing that has me a little hesitant on signing off or guaranteeing that is that with Forza Horizon 5 releasing on PS5, do they release 6 quite so soon?
Interesting. Yes, great point.
And the key thing would be maybe if they do release it this year, is it going to PS5 day and date or not? If it doesn't, then it kind of makes sense because you give the PlayStation players a taste of the game, and then they're going to have to wait a year or maybe pick up an Xbox or play on their PC to play the latest version after they've already enjoyed, Forza Horizon 5. Maybe you get them to convert at that point.
Yeah.
But if it winds up being a day and date, I know there's going to be some people who'll be like, I wouldn't say that they'd be pissed because for $50 or 60 or whatever the game released at for the base game, it's a complete game. You have tons of cars, tons of activities to do. So there's plenty for that, for the dollar value for the PlayStation players.
Yeah.
But then now to get the latest and greatest, they're going to have to cough up what I guess now maybe this winds up being an $80.
Yeah.
So that could very well work out in Microsoft's favor if they do release it day and date. But either way, for us on Xbox, we've had Forza Horizon 5 now for 4+ years. I guess almost going on 5. Well, actually, yeah, about 5 years at this point. I think it's time for Forza Horizon 6, especially if it's going to be in somewhere like Japan. Now, there's a possibility they could go with Germany. The Autobahn would be an awesome thing to have, highway racing and stuff like that. But I think we could see this because it's about that time frame. And I think releasing it later this year, while it may seem a little soon for maybe PlayStation players, if it's a day and date, for us Xbox players, we've been asking for a Horizon game in Japan for a long time. They've made sure they've gotten a lot of the licenses back for a lot of the JDM cars, like Nissan. I know they have the license extended for a good bit of time, as well as for Subaru and stuff like that. Which that licensing was like off again, on again for a little bit. But, with them possibly going to Japan, I think this would be the way to show it, especially with it being on the next generation consoles, or only on like the Series X and S generation. I mean, Xbox One players can always stream it through Game Pass Ultimate or Xbox Cloud Gaming kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's time to show it. They've already did the Japan track with the
Yep.
I guess the release for Forza Motorsport. I think this would be like a nice tip of the hat to have it where Horizon winds up being in that same location as well. But I'm all for it if they show it at this showcase. If they do, that will probably be my my top 2 or 3, because there's only a small number of games that may top that if they have it up here at the showcase. But it's definitely going to be in the top 2 either way you look at it. And fingers crossed. It's about that time. But I'm going to be watching Jason Ronald's social media as well to see if he makes any suggestions or any hints towards it between now and next Sunday. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to episode 13. It was like, hey, wait a second, why is BoomStick driving like a lunatic? Folks, I'm hunting for signs, as you can clearly see. You'll see I'll get into a couple of races, but it's fine. I actually have to record some footage of me just driving like a normal person and not driving like a lunatic. But that's fine. I mean, look, there is something to be said about possibly seeing this game released this year. Now, is it likely, ladies and gentlemen? The answer is no, right? But you made mention of something that's pretty pressing. Fable was supposed to release this year. Right now, again, could Fable release February of 2026? And of course, Forza Horizon in the fall? That's possible. And we're seeing that be done by Obsidian this year, right? Avowed opening up the year, and of course, Outer Worlds closing out the year, Outer Worlds 2. So it is possible. But I kind of wonder. They've been working on this game for a minute, right? 2021 is when this released. Obviously, they had to develop for the PlayStation 5. I don't know the time frame on that, folks. I honestly couldn't tell you. But they've been working on Forza Horizon 6 for a while. We still don't know where it is. We're all hoping it's Japan. I know you mentioned Germany. I had a guy in the chat mention Canada. Canada wouldn't be bad. Canada, I mean, I don't know how many times I've been to Canada, but it hasn't been a lot. And I'd like to see what that country looks like. That would be a good spot. Germany, here's the problem with Germany. The problem with Germany isn't that it's a problem with the country. The country is amazing. It's gorgeous. But we were already there somewhat in Forza Horizon, being in Europe in Forza Horizon 4. I don't know if they make a return that quickly there. Like Mexico, of course, is on the opposite end. And it was a great place to have all of the races that we've enjoyed with Forza Horizon 5. I just think that I know that we're spoiled fans. Like we kind of want what we want when we want it, right? That's just how fans are. But Japan is a scene that doesn't really get the sparks that it or the highlights that it used to. There was for years Tokyo, Tokyo Drift series, right? Now that just came back in for PC. Now I don't think that's on console, and it's been a minute. I think Forza Horizon in Japan, that's personally where I hope that they go. Could they go somewhere else? I would imagine, yeah. But I hope that's not the case here. We've all been waiting for it, and I really do hope they get there. I like your thoughts and your theories. I just kind of wonder if you have anything on the back end to say regarding Fable's delay potentially opening the door. Because one of the things that we did here, right? You got to remember, folks, I keep my ear to the floor all the time. I don't remember exactly whether this came to be from Phil Spencer or Matt Booty, but the conversation was said publicly that they do have games that were not announced, a specific game, a big specific game that wasn't announced that was going to release this year. Now, is that Forza Horizon 6? Is that Clockwork Revolution? Is that Fallout 3 remake, because that hasn't been announced. That was leaked in the court documents. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, man? What are the likelihoods of one delay opening the door for a potential surprise release in Forza Horizon 6?
I think the potential is quite high. The main reason why I say that is because they've had a lot of these teams. Like, they got 30 studios, and each studio is probably about like 2 teams. Some of them even have 3 teams. With that being said, they have it where they're working on games constantly. Yep. And they might put something on the shelf when it's complete, or maybe a matter of, okay, well, this one we can set some more time for a later date, kind of like what they did with some of the coalition titles that they were working on, which may very well be either complete or close to complete. It's just that they're on pause for now. But when it comes to something like Forza Horizon, that's something, considering the amount of time that they've had to work on it compared to previous years, although they do take a good bit more time in developing a lot of the additional content throughout the year and stuff like that. That's something that they may have already completed, and they're like, well, since Fable isn't going, well, we can push this ahead. And then since Fable, is pushed to next year, well, maybe Fable takes Forza's spot in that regard as far as for Horizon 6. And I don't want to say that that's the case when it comes to some of the things Bethesda is working on. We know that they're working on multiple things as well. We still haven't heard what I guess it's Bethesda or ZeniMax Online has been working on outside of like the additional content for Fallout 76 and for Elder Scrolls Online. They're working on a third project, which I'm not sure if that's licensed or not, but we know Bethesda's got, multiple teams working on stuff, and some of that stuff hasn't been talked about. Wolfenstein might be a little bit further down the pike, and the same thing with, a Fallout 5 type of deal, but they have some other stuff in the mix that, like some of the remasters that like Fallout 3 could possibly make an appearance. So there's a lot of teams that have stuff that may already be done. We haven't heard about anything from Double Fine in a while. And they've had a lot of development time to be able to work on, whether it's a Psychonauts 3 or, Brutal Legend 2 or the clay pot thing that we saw them working on before they were acquired. There's just so much stuff in their arsenal, I guess you could say, that we'll hopefully find out by Sunday, a good handful of that. But I'm under the impression that almost every studio has something within 2 years ready of release, and some of them already have products that could be released. It's just a matter of scheduling when the right time would be to release that stuff. So Forza Horizon 6, ever since the Fable delay, I put that as the flip flop or crisscross of what Playground Games will release 6 for Forza Horizon 6 first, and then Fable the following year, and then maybe after those two have gotten into the hands of everybody on Game Pass and on Xbox platform and PC and so forth, then maybe they'll make the announcement for their third project. But outside of that, I think they're ready. I think it stands a pretty good chance. And same thing would go for potentially hearing something from 343 or I guess you could say Halo Studios. I think they're going to have something ready as well. So there's a lot of Xbox first party studios that I think are closer to announcing stuff than we even give them credit for.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they have over 30 studios. Each studio, depending on how big they are, we know, like for instance, Obsidian has 4 teams. Right? They could have started a 5th team for all we know. We know that they are working on a lot of games, and it's crazy that the roadmap is so far into the future. Like, there are some games that we don't expect this year or even next year, like Perfect Dark. I know someone had made mention about it in the chat, saying that the game was in development hell. I don't recall seeing that. I know that they made some changes. But I know that, I mean, we got a chance last year to see the game in action. We saw gameplay. It looked amazing. Maybe that's held off to give the team more time, and maybe that's a launch title. I don't know. But all I know is that for Xbox specifically, they have so many games in the pipeline it's really going to be interesting on how they frame what we know and surprise us with what we don't. And I think some of those surprises are already starting to be out there. 007 is one of them. I would imagine we're going to continue through as the week carries on. We're going to hear more things. You know what? I'm actually glad, because usually at this time, the start of the week is all bad news for Xbox. It's everyone running narratives. It's the press going after them for this, that, and the third. And I like the fact that it did open up the week with 007's information. Like, that literally came from IO Interactive, expected. They didn't specifically say the Xbox showcase. They said later this week. Okay, great. We got the presser from regarding The Witcher 4 being shown in Unreal Engine 5. That's happening later this week. I think it's actually tomorrow on June 3rd. So you're going to get a chance to see what The Witcher 4 looks like in Unreal Engine 5. I don't know if it's going to be gameplay, but I'm sure we're all going to be blown away. Shout out to King Webb in the chat. Great to see you here, brother. And thank you for all the DMs. We certainly appreciate it here. Okay. Let's kind of sidestep a little bit here, keeping with the Forza Horizon conversation. And this one is, like I said in the opening, folks, a head scratcher indeed. So the PlayStation 5 Pro, in some things, edges out the Xbox Series X. Now, some people call foul for that. Some of the Xbox gamers that feel that it's not right that happens. I say this, folks, it's newer hardware. It doesn't surprise me when it does. But is it outpacing the Series X? It really isn't. It's doing a pinch better in certain things. And of course, I'm going to go to the Pro, which of course is Fuzz Belvedere, regarding exactly how Forza Horizon 5 is better on the PS5 Pro, not the PS5. PS5 Pro versus the Series X. What is that difference? And then, of course, we're going to have a couple of laughs here, because it is pretty odd that Sony is showing off an Xbox first-party game with its ray tracing and its lighting in the form of Forza Horizon 5, and not going to their own first-party game, Gran Turismo. Because you got to remember, this game is 4 years old. It'll be 5 years old next year. And that's, I have personally, in all the years covering gaming, never seen anything like it. I know some people were on there, trolling the PlayStation fans. I mean, listen, it's odd. I'll be honest with you. It's incredibly odd, but it just goes to show you how impressive Playground Games is in creating racers, and more importantly, how impressive, even though the game is 4 years and some change old, how impressive that Forza Horizon 5 remains to be. Let's get your thoughts on why it might be a slightly better on the PS5 Pro.
Well, when it comes to I'll start off with the GT7 aspect, and this is something I've called for Sony to do, is put it on PC. Until they put it on PC, it's probably not going to reach its full potential. The Pro has some updates where they're able to have the ray tracing on track finally because of it, but it still is a bit of a hindrance on the frame rate on certain tracks, especially if you do like I do, where you race painted cars as opposed to when I say painted cars, ones that look like race cars with stripes or logos and whatnot, as opposed to just a plain paint scheme. But they probably couldn't get it to a point where they could show its vast improvement in comparison to the original, because the way they implemented the ray tracing in Gran Turismo isn't as noticeable unless you're in cockpit view and in the back of the pack where there's a lot of cars around you that may have brighter paint schemes and such. So it's not as noticeable. But when it comes to something like Forza Horizon, even though on like the Series X, for example, if you do the cockpit view, if you've looked at the hood and it looks like it's ray tracing, they've been able to manipulate screen space reflections to the point where it looks like ray tracing, because it takes the glow or the paint color of the cars around you and kind of flips it into a mirror image that's like overlaid over the hood, so it looks like ray tracing. So for years, what we thought may have been ray tracing in Forza Horizon, unless you're on PC, was really screen space reflections, but to the nth degree, which playground games are great at utilizing that tech as far as making it look a lot more like a more costly, performant, type of visual type of deal. Now with the PS5 Pro, it will have the ray tracing, so they don't have to do the screen space reflections, but the quality of the ray tracing in comparison to the screen space reflections that is used, it's unless you're driving, until you drive into like a tunnel or have like an overcast day, I would say those are the only times where the the ray tracing will have a better standout, because screen space reflections has a certain limitation as far as the visuals that will show on the hood. So if you race from the cockpit on a Series X and it's a cloudy day, or you race into a tunnel, that's the only time it looks like you'll have a worse image quality in comparison. Now, on the flip side of things, when it comes to the 30 frame mode, the 30 frame mode on, let's say, the Series X and S is going to have a lot better visuals overall when it comes to like the performance modes, where it dials some of the like the foliage back and some of the particles on the ground and stuff. The PS5 Pro can do a performance mode that looks closer to the like the 30 frames mode, where you have almost every leaf and every little branch and things like that you'll see. And on like the Series X, it's dialed back a bit. So there is a little bit better appearance on like their performance mode in comparison to the series consoles performance mode. But if you're driving 200 miles an hour, you're not noticing it as much, because they've done a great job on the series console with the motion blur effect that kind of compensates for what you would see at speed. Now, if you're just creeping along and taking pictures, until you actually take the picture, you probably won't. That's where you'll notice maybe some of the difference. But the minute you go to take the picture, both of them do the up res on the visuals, so it's like a like for like as far as the ray tracing, as far as the branches and foliage and all that stuff. So there are some advantages with the Pro, but like I said, overcast days, tunnels, anything overhead outside the cars, from the cockpit view, that's where the Pro is going to be a little bit better performant. When it comes to its performance mode, visually, it's like if you could compare it to like I would say high versus ultra. That's about where like the Series X would be on high for its performance mode as far as the visuals, and then the Pro would be on ultra, just adding more foliage and things like that. Now, there are some instances from a draw distance standpoint where the series console does still does better than the PS5 Pro. Be it that it might be, the trees in the distance or the mountaintop in the distance or something like that. There is an advantage on draw distance, apparently, on the series consoles. It might be how it was just scripted in general from when the game was built, but that's where don't feel like if you're on a series console, you're getting the downgraded version. You're getting pretty much as good as you could get, minus some ray tracing, bumps, and maybe a few more foliage aspects on performance mode. But ultimately, if you want the best visuals for Horizon, I hate to say it, play it on PC. That's where pretty much the visuals are going to be unlimited, but that comes at a cost of the hardware for PC. So if you already have the PC with let's say a 30 series card, I mean, I think you could even do a 20 series card, or some of the more recent, Radeon cards, like the 78 series or 7800 series. I think all of those cards will be, the 30 series card will definitely be better than what the series or the PS5 Pro can do. The 20 series card from NVIDIA, it's like it'll edge it out slightly, probably get more frames on similar visuals, or you'll get better visuals, but you'll have to cap it at 60 and try to keep it where it's consistent. If you go with a 30 series NVIDIA or newer, or if you go with a 7900 series or newer Radeon card, the series console and the Pro aren't touching those on like ultra settings and things. So that's kind of where everything falls in line on visuals. But overall, it is kind of funny that PlayStation is using a competitor's software to highlight the advantages of the hardware when they can't even get their own games to do it. Like you would think Horizon Forbidden West or let's see, what was another new title like Returnal or something along those lines might be the go-to games, or even Spider-Man 2 would be a good one to highlight some of the improved visuals, which Spider-Man 2 does that with some of the reflections, although some of the reflections comparably on like some of the buildings, it's negligible as far as the improvement over the base PS5, but you do get a little bit better performance as far as consistency on screen since the more recent patches and things like that. But yeah, PlayStation using the Xbox game to highlight their hardware. I mean, in all fairness, we kind of did that with the Xbox One X when it came to things like third-party software. Not any PlayStation titles, obviously, but things like Red Dead Redemption were absolutely best played on like the Xbox One X. Same thing with most of the Call of Duties, although you may get like a frame drop here and there, but visual and resolution wise was always better on the Xbox One X. That basically the Xbox One X, its entire life through that generation, always had better resolution, with the exception of a frame drop here and there, always had better frame rate and better visuals as far as the density of the surrounding or the environment and stuff. So the Pro isn't as big of a leap from the base PS5. So, although keep in mind, if you didn't have a PS5 and you were looking to get a PlayStation, I would say get the Pro, especially with them doing that $50 off deal. But me personally, I still have my launch PS5. I don't feel like upgrading to a PS5 Pro because I have a PC. So any games that would play better, any Xbox games that would play better on the Pro, which are few and far between, because I think even Doom plays better on the series consoles, I could just easily play on my PC because I have a decent 30 series card that I overclock and whatnot. But all things aside, it is funny. Like that would be like Pepsi showing something with Coca-Cola or something. It just feels weird. Like we're in a weird timeline now when
Yes,
it comes
we
to
are.
Xbox and PlayStation. But the Pro, it has some advantages on Forza Horizon 5, but not to the point where your Series X console is downgraded in any way. It's just a matter of, sure, they get a few extra branches on performance mode, actual ray tracing as opposed to screen space reflections on the hood, which you won't notice really a difference until, like I said before, go through a tunnel, or if it's a cloudy day, those are the only times it breaks up the image a little bit as far as the cars around you. But I don't know. That's it. I don't think it's worth the upgrade, but it is, telling that PlayStation had to use an Xbox title, since those tend to be more optimized than the ones that are from their own very first party. So